Welcome back to the top thread. Today, we're diving into a gripping, heart-wrenching tale from Reddit that will leave you questioning the importance of empathy and quick action. Buckle up, because this story isn't just about a drive, it's about life, loss, and the split-second decisions that can change everything. In college, my best friend and I had a summer job removing trees from a property 50 kilometers from the nearest hospital or ambulance station. We both started the job at the same time and worked there for almost 3 summers as part of a team of 5 people. We were all highly skilled with the equipment and had undergone extensive training. 2 members of the team were professional arborists. Despite having all the necessary gear, anyone with experience using chainsaws knows that accidents can still happen. One morning in late August, we had just finished cutting down a 30-foot white pine and were in the process of removing its branches. My friend was working his way down the trunk when he hit a knot in an unusually shaped branch. The chainsaw kicked back, and because of the awkward position he was in, it sliced into a seam between his protective chaps and his belt. The bleeding started immediately, and everyone stopped what they were doing. While the others worked to stabilize him, I ran to get my car, knowing we would have to drive to get help. We loaded him into the back seat while trying to control the bleeding, and I drove as fast as I could toward the nearest hospital. About 10 kilometers into the drive, we regained cell phone coverage and arranged to meet an ambulance at a designated location. I knew time was critical, as we were struggling to stop the bleeding. Once I reached a major highway, I drove faster than I ever had before. While driving through remote areas, most people moved to the side to let us pass. However, as we approached the town, we encountered groups of vehicles. About halfway to the hospital, we came across a white Nissan Altima and a Subaru Forester that blocked us in. I can still recall the license plates of those vehicles to this day. The driver of the Altima seemed determined not to let us pass, slowing down from 90 kilometers per hour to 75, despite the speed limit being 100 kilometers per hour. We were stuck behind them for 10 minutes until we reached the next exit ramp, where I was finally able to pass on the inside lane. By this point, most of our clothes had been used to apply pressure and soak up the blood. Frustrated, one of the team members threw a blood-soaked t-shirt out the window as we passed, and it landed on the hood of the Altima, leaving a streak as it slid up and over the windshield. A few kilometers later, we were joined by a highway patrol officer who matched our speed and cleared the way to the ambulance, which was waiting a short distance ahead. By this time, the bleeding had slowed, but my friend's pulse was very weak. The ambulance crew immediately transferred him upon our arrival. I jumped into the ambulance and we sped off. Tragically, my friend passed away just minutes later, less than a kilometer from the hospital. While I was in the ambulance, my other friend stayed on the roadside to explain the situation to the officer. The driver of the Altima arrived and approached the officer, unaware of the gravity of the situation. She began shouting about dangerous driving and how we could have caused an accident. The officer listened and then brought her over to see the inside of my car, which was covered in blood. He also pointed out my blood-soaked friends and explained that we were responding to a medical emergency. After confirming our account of her blocking traffic, he issued her several citations for unnecessary obstruction and dangerous driving. While writing the ticket, the officer received news of my friend's death and stopped to inform my team. He chose not to tell the driver of the Altima, but my friends made sure she understood the consequences of her actions. On their way to meet me at the hospital, my friends passed the Subaru Forester, which had been stopped by another officer. The lesson here is simple if you can move out of the way. The person behind you might seem impatient or reckless, but they could also be dealing with a medical emergency, a partner in labor, a child experiencing a diabetic attack, or, as in our case, someone bleeding to death. Letting someone pass costs you nothing and could save a life. While such situations are rare, they are not impossible. Your response reflects your mindset. If you assume you're always in the right and others are wrong, you'll struggle to navigate life's challenges. However, if you approach the world with empathy and understanding, you'll find it easier to relax and avoid unnecessary conflict. Take care and live well.